We got no engines, Ted. Do we?
A couple of Cobra motors would pull a premium a week before Race Wars.
In the last video, we saw all of the destruction that was inside of this poor Ford 4.6 liter factory supercharged motor that came in my 2003 Cobra that was cheap, but now I'm not so sure anymore. But hey, you gotta roll with the punches. Anyways, here's where we're at.
Motor's completely torn down. You know, like I said in the last video, a lot of this stuff is unusable. Some of it might be able to, but eventually, if you wanted to rebuild this motor, it would have to go to the machine shop regardless to be machined and have new pistons fitted and new rings and bearings and all that stuff. And that can be done for a reasonable cost, but truth be told, in the sake of time, and also in this case, as you'll see, cost, as soon as I found that this motor had 50 PSI in one cylinder, which was this cylinder, by the way, with the completely missing ringland area there, I started looking on the interwebs for a replacement motor.
And I found one pretty much the next day, and it's been sitting behind me in a pile of parts that I've been gathering for the last 2 weeks for this car. So let me show you what I got. And voila, here she is. The replacement motor for my poor Cobra here is right here in this plastic on these furniture dollies, and that's where it's been for the past 2 weeks since I unloaded it from the truck. But in order to properly show you guys this motor, I'd like to get all this junk off of my engine stand and get this thing on the engine stand so that we can kind of shift our focus from taking stuff apart and destruction to building this motor and transferring all the parts that need to go onto this motor, on the engine stand. So let's get it off the dollies here, out of the plastic, on the engine stand, and then we can take a look at it.
All right, guys, well, here she is. Here is the motor that I have picked up for the Cobra. I actually found this on Craigslist. Believe it or not, people still use Craigslist. I wasn't finding anything I really liked on Facebook Marketplace. Decided to check Craigslist. Found a guy that was selling this motor, and the listing was built 1997 Mustang Cobra motor. And the reason I clicked on the listing is because the 97 to 98 Mustang Cobras, as well as the 93 to I think 97 Mark 8 Lincoln Mark 8s, came with the aluminum Teksid block. It's called the Teksid block because it was cast by a company in Italy by the name of Teksid. And yeah, basically, long story short, it is probably the strongest factory Ford block, with the exception of like the newer GT500 blocks. Super strong block. It is 100 pounds lighter than the Cobra block that came in this car, and it is stronger. So when a lot of guys are rebuilding, trying to build the best modular 4.6 liter they can, this is the block they go with. There's guys who have been like 7s in the quarter mile in a stock Teksid block. So there's that. The other thing to note about this motor is it's brand new. This was just built by a local machine shop, KJE Engines in Rochester, New Hampshire. And they have equipped it with, and we'll get a better look at this later, but this has got the factory forged Cobra crank, Molnar H-beam power adder rods, forged rods, and a custom set of diamond pistons. So basically the same crank as this one right here. Again, guys have made like 1,500 horsepower with that crank. Super strong block, forged rods, ARP hardware, and custom forged pistons. So in a nutshell, this motor is stronger than the Terminator motor ever was out of the factory, and about 80 pounds lighter. The problem is, or the only problem here, is that these are what are called B heads. So these are the 96 to 98 Cobra heads. And I don't know why they're called B heads, but basically the intake ports are not going to match up to that Eaton supercharger. So you see the intake ports here, kind of what they look like. There's like 2 different shapes. Then you come over to the factory heads I got here on the bench. These are the used ones out of the Cobra. They're more of this oval shape with a little indent there. So those are called C heads. So clearly, this is not going to work here. But that's not a problem, because we can just take these heads off, and the C heads will bolt right onto this motor and go right into this car, no problem. There's a couple little things we have to do. Not a big deal, but we'll get to that later. So we could take these heads off, put the C heads on, and we're good to go. But some of you probably remember when I was doing the motor teardown and compression test, one of these heads, I don't remember which one it was, I think it was the other one. These are the 4-thread heads, the 4-thread C heads. So what are the AF casting number? So these are the ones that shoot out the spark plugs, and you always have to do the heel coil repair. You can see in there's only 4 threads that hold the spark plug in. So I've got a set of C heads here. They're not all that desirable, and one of them is already damaged. So I could get them repaired and put them on that motor, but at the end of the day, then it still has a 4-thread head. So I made a post on a Cobra Facebook page that many of you guys are probably on, saying, hey, I'm looking for a set of 9-thread C heads. And a viewer of the channel actually reached out, who's local, and said, hey, I got a set of these heads fresh from the machine shop, ready to bolt on, 100% gone through, and I can meet you on Saturday. So actually, when I was picking up the Corvette Z06 from McMulkin, I met with this viewer of the channel locally, did the deal, and boom, brand new or freshly remachined C heads with the 9-thread spark plug hole. So these are the latest, or one of the latest castings. This is the DB casting. So this is basically an aviator head, which has got the improved cooling passages, more importantly, the 9-thread heads, and the cams are all the same on the C heads. So aviator, Mach 1, Cobra, they're all the same. So basically all rebuilt with new valve seals, valve seats, completely cleaned, decked, ready to bolt on. For this whole thing right here, I made a deal with the guy for $2,200. The rods alone, I think, and the pistons alone were $2,000 flat. That doesn't include the Teksid block, which most guys, if you're trying to find a Teksid block, they're anywhere from $400 to $800. That doesn't include the machine work, thousands of dollars of machine work, honing the cylinder, boring the cylinders, honing the cylinders, line boring, everything, cleaned up, hot tank, Magnaflux, all that stuff. Plus the heads, ARP hardware, everything else. Like, this is a $5,000 to $6,000 long block, or short block actually. It's a $5,000 to $6,000 short block if you were to buy it from an online supplier. The heads whatever, I might sell them. I might even give them back to the guy I bought the short block from, because he had expressed interest in taking that junk block and taking these heads and building something. But anyways, screaming deal on this forged short block. $2,200, $2,000 we'll call it. And then the heads, fresh from the machine shop, both of them, driver and passenger, ready to bolt on, $1,400. So I'm about $3,500 into a complete forged 9-thread head Cobra long block, which is an insane deal. And you know, going on what I said earlier about if I was to take this block, the stock rods, fit some stock-ish pistons in there, still have the 4-thread heads. After I do gaskets and machine work, and then probably 4 to 6 weeks at the machine shop of downtime, I'd be well past $4,000 regardless, and I would have a weaker iron block motor with inferior heads. So I don't want to say I got lucky, maybe a little bit of luck, but this is what I'm always talking about, is shopping around for deals. 97 Cobra motor does not bolt right into a Cobra, but with a little work it can, and now we have even better parts. So I think that's enough rambling for now. I'd like to get a better look at this motor, you know, see what the rods look like, pistons, all that stuff. First thing we got to do is get these heads off, because we're not going to be using them. So we can get the heads off, get a better look at the pistons and cylinders, rotate it over, look at the crank, and we can talk about what's next. So yeah, let's get to work. Heads are off, so these are the B heads, freshly machined. As I said, brand new, freshly put together motor. Looks like they used Fel-Pro multi-layer steel gaskets, which is exactly what I got. But yeah, these are ready to go on someone's car who's going to be building a B head car. More importantly, here is our Teksid forged 4.6 liter short block. So this is the factory Ford forged crank. You can see the Ford stamp down there. You can see our Molnar power adder H-beam forged rods, ARP 2000 rod bolts. If I get a light down there, get the lighting just right, you can almost see the word Molnar on the rods. But yeah, fully forged bottom end. Here you can see the Teksid 4-bolt mains as opposed to the 2-bolt mains on the Romeo iron block. And then if we flip this thing over, you can see the beautiful diamond pistons. For those of you that don't know, also an easy way to tell a Teksid block is the square pattern here in the intake valley. That's the easiest way. But yeah, beautiful diamond custom forged pistons. Previous owner was telling me these also have gas porting, as well as obviously valve reliefs. These are a beautiful piston. You can see brand new, fresh cross hatching. I believe he said this was, I want to say 10,000 over, maybe 20,000 over. And then, you know, obviously a fresh hone, freshly machined deck surface there. And I talked to the guy that built this motor, and he said that it's designed for about 9.8 to around 10-to-1 compression. Factory motor is 8.5-to-1, so this thing is going to be a little bit hopped up, but should be just fine for, you know, a pulleyed Eaton on pump gas. Should make a little bit more power and might even sound a little bit more rowdy. So this is going to be a super stout motor, and I'm super excited about it. Coming over here, you guys saw me unpack all of these parts, almost all of which I got from Rock Auto. The only one I didn't was this Ford Performance high volume, high pressure oil pump, which the owner of the motor that I purchased actually tossed this in. You know, he bought this for his build. So add into that $2,200 figure the Ford Performance or Ford Racing high volume, high pressure oil pump and pickup tube. So we're good to go there. Everything else I got from Rock Auto, and this is such a vast assortment of stuff. We're not going to go over everything, but you will see all of this in the builds. Oil pan gasket. I started pricing out head gaskets, and then I found on Rock Auto this kit, basically a head gasket kit, and it includes all of this stuff, which we're going to need anyways, and I think this was like under $200. So this is a super good deal on everything we're going to need as far as head gaskets. Then I started to do the while you're in there stuff, you know, some of the nickel and dime stuff I talked about in the last video. This is a shift fork. This is a brand new Gates water pump. Since, you know, while you're in there, you might as well do a water pump. Let's see, rear main seal, crankshaft front seal. This is our rear diff cover seal because that's leaking. I got a ton of idlers. You know, I was talking about nickel and diming in the last video, and it is possible to take your stock idlers, all those idlers up there that are bad, and you can press the bearings out right in a vise, right in your garage, and save a couple bucks if you just get the bearing part number, which you could do. I started looking up the bearings for those idlers, and they're like $8 a piece. So that's not bad. But then, once again, great deals on Rock Auto. I found a lot of these SKF, you know, complete idlers for like $6. So why would I replace the bearing in the stock idler when I can just get a brand new SKF, which is a solid company, idlers for $8? You know, makes no sense. $6, whatever these were. So yeah, whole bunch of brand new idlers, which, you know, that's a little bit later in this engine build process. But yeah, that's what half this stuff is. Brand new dry belt, all the Rock Auto magnets that they send you. What is this? Another idler tensioner. Thermostat we're gonna do while we're in there. This is our shift or our clutch fork pivot ball. It's a kind of while you're in there clutch thing. Various coolant seals, pilot bearings. These are motor mounts, I think, right here. What do we got here? Oh yeah, brand new Felpro head bolts. I actually got these from Advance Auto. Had a good price and a good sale. Just basically every seal and gasket we're gonna need to get this motor back together. Like I said, I've been going crazy ordering parts. I got a whole stack of parts. And one more I'm gonna show you right here, actually not related to the engine build, but just to show you guys. I was gonna order a brand new carpet to replace the carpet in the car because of those holes. But the problem with getting a brand new carpet is you have to cut all the seatbelt holes and stuff. So I found on eBay dark charcoal carpet out of a 2004 Mach 1. And it looks to be in completely mint condition. It's already obviously molded in all the right spots. There's like one little stain right here that I think would be under the rear mat anyways. It'll come out when I do a shampoo. Other than that, it's completely mint. It's molded. All the holes are there. And it should just drop right in. Got all the factory sound deadening. Mint condition, low mile Mach 1. So we'll put that aside for now. But yeah, we have got our Ford carpet ready to go in when we get to that point. But we got a lot of motor work to do before then. So there's a couple things we have to do to the Teksid block. They're almost identical to the iron block. But in order for that Eaton lower intake manifold to fit, I believe we have to knock these bosses down, which are no longer needed. I think I have to knock this cooling tube out, this heater hose tube out. Bought a brand new one, so that's right here. I got that from Rock Auto. Here's the one I knocked out of the iron block. So basically this is like a barb fitting. The one out of the iron block is an O-ring fitting. So I believe we have to knock this out, put that in. And then one really important thing that is not required, but definitely recommended, is these timing chain dowels. So the ones on the iron block for the Terminator are a pressed in like 8mm design. So super strong, and they press fit in right here on the block. The Teksid block, they're a thread in design, which is fine, but I loosened this one to show you guys. It's a 6mm thread, so not all that strong. So what can happen is these can snap off, loosen your timing, and then your motor jumps timing, and all of a sudden your $10,000 or $20,000 motor, the pistons run into the valves, and it's now extremely damaged or destroyed, all because of these little parts right here. So what's the fix? So a guy by the name of James owns this company called Cobra Engineering, and he was nice enough to send me the things that we need to upgrade the timing dowel pins on that Teksid block. So if he sends you this nice case, and this is basically a drilling fixture that is going to go on the front of a block here, bolt in, take all the guesswork out of it, and allow us to drill and tap these to be an M8 instead of an M6. And like I said, takes all the guesswork out of it. Beautiful billet aluminum piece here is our fixture. And then here's the goods right here. These are our M8 timing dowels, much stronger, forged design. Even includes the drill bit that you need, as well as a brand new tap. So literally takes all of the guesswork out of it. Even tells you where the timing cover holes are, so you know that this thing's bolted up properly. You can only bolt in one way anyway. So absolutely beautiful kit here from James at Cobra Engineering. So yeah, huge shout out to James. He's been in the Cobra game a long time. He's had these cars since they were brand new back in 2003. He offers all sorts of other products like tensioners and guides and all sorts of super nice billet stuff, specifically for the Terminator chassis and the 4.6 liter. So I'll leave his link down below in the description. Definitely check his stuff out if you're looking to build one of these motors. But yeah, with that, I'd like to get to work getting this block ready to get our new C heads on. So getting those bosses down, getting these drilled and tapped for the new dowels. I also believe in order to use this oil pan, we're gonna have to knock out these fins here from the oil pan, and obviously clean out this oil pan from all the rod bearing material that is in there from the old motor. So we got plenty to do. All right, let's get to work. Well, our Teksid block, I think, is ready to be made from a short block into a long block. It is ready to accept the C style 4-valve heads. So since we saw it last, I have ground off the bosses that were on the intake valley here. So we talked about that. Those are done, nice and smooth, vacuumed out, blown off, did that outside. Taped all this off to keep it all protected, and then blew it all off anyway. So surgically clean. Got the old Valley coolant hose that goes to the heater core out. That was a little bit of a struggle, came out kind of mangled, but got it out, cleaned up the hole, got the new fitting in there, the new style fitting in there with the 2 O-rings on it. This is a brand new Dorman part. Tap that thing in, good to go there. On the bottom side, you guys won't be able to see it anymore, but you saw it in the B-roll footage. I got our windage tray on, brand new Ford Racing high volume, high pressure oil pump, new pickup tube, O-ring, all that stuff on, torqued down, good to go. Oh yeah, most importantly, or not most important, but importantly, got our Cobra engineering timing dowels in. Used the fixture, it worked beautifully. Super nice kit. Again, shout out to Cobra Engineering for sending me that. Got the 8mm billet dowels in there. Again, fixture worked perfectly. Just drill them out, tap it, cleaned everything again, surgically clean. Those are on there. So with that, I think that we are basically good to go. And this thing is now better than a Terminator block and ready to go into a Terminator. I think the only other thing we're gonna have to deal with here when it comes time to put the timing cover on is there's one hole, I think it's like this one maybe, on the timing cover that's not on this block. And I think it's like right here or something. And you just put some silicone in it and you're good to go. Other than that, I think we're ready. So I think it's time to transform this thing from a short block into a long block, which means we need to break open some of my new stuff from Rock Auto. My complete Felpro gasket kit, which includes the head gaskets. They're a multi-layer steel design. And then some brand new head bolts. These are the bolts that I took out. Even though they were literally never in a running car, these are torque to yield head bolts, as are the factory ones. So they are only designed to be used once and then they stretch and then they're done. Here we go, 281, 0304, supercharged. Yeah, these are a torque to yield design. They can only be used once. So once you've used them, you basically throw them away. So I got a brand new set of head bolts from Felpro here, and then all the gaskets we're gonna need. So yeah, let's bust open these beautiful multi-layer steel or MLS head gaskets. Do a final clean and prep of the block. Actually, you guys saw me use my vacuum with a straw taped to the end. I like to do that when I'm doing head bolts, just to make sure that there's no water or gunk in the bolt holes. You guys that paid attention in science class know you cannot compress a liquid. So if there was coolant or something in any of these bolt holes, and then you drive that bolt down, it's gonna get to that liquid, stop, and basically that liquid has to go somewhere, and 9 times out of 10, it's gonna crack the block. So when you're putting in head bolts or head studs, even though this thing's fresh back from the machine shop, always double check there's no liquid in there. And check out the torque sequence for these head bolts. We got 6 steps here. I mean, I'm used to like ARP bolts where you got, 90 foot-pounds in 3 stages, so 30, 60, 90, that's pretty typical. These things tighten to 30 foot-pounds, tighten an additional 90 degrees, loosen the bolts 1 turn, tighten back to 30 foot-pounds, and then 2 additional steps of 90 degrees. Like, what? Half of me just wants to get out the 1/2-inch Milwaukee and just ugga-dugga these things down until the righty-tighty becomes righty-loosey. But then I'll be complaining that, my head gaskets didn't seal. So I guess we're gonna do it the right way. From the Ford service manual, torque all 10 bolts on each side. So 20 bolts, that's a total of 6 steps. So basically 120 different individual turns of the wrench. And we should be done. So let's do a final cleanup of the block, slap the head gaskets on, slap the heads on, and then spend the next hour, 2 hours, just torquing bolts. So let's go. Well, just like that, we have gone from a short block to a long block. Got both heads on, head gaskets on, head bolts in, lubricated properly, and torqued in the 6-step sequence as shown in the factory Ford service manual. Didn't take quite as long as I thought it would. Kind of when you're torquing heads, once you get into a rhythm, it's really not so bad. So yeah, we got a complete long block here. This thing is well on its way to being a complete, better than ever Terminator motor. Better than it ever left the factory with our Teksid block, all our upgraded components. Better than new. Can't wait. And as you guys saw in the B-roll, we got a big delivery from LMR, or late model restoration. Huge shout out to LMR. They're helping me out with some of these parts for this build because God knows she needs a lot. So I just got everything unboxed and I was waiting on one or a couple things in particular. Some of the other stuff's gonna be a little bit later, but let me show you. So here's what we got. You guys probably already noticed the most important thing, aka the only thing that this car needs, which is a clutch. But yeah, we got a clutch. So this is the McLeod RST. This is a twin disc. I have done multiple RXT clutches, but in the interest of budget and also in the power goals for this car as it sits, I went with the RST, which is the little brother of the RXT. Obviously still a twin disc. I think it's still rated for like 700 foot-pounds of torque or something like that. I've always had good luck with these McLeod clutches, so I had to go with that. They feel better than stock and obviously hold a lot more power. And yeah, just as far in my experience, just a good quality product. And obviously billet steel flywheel, lightened flywheel, if I recall correctly. I got the Ford Racing throwout bearing. Always replace your throwout bearing or release bearing or whatever you want to call it when you're doing a clutch. And then if you guys remember in the other parts footage, we got a new fork and pivot ball and all that stuff. So basically everything to do a clutch. Also got an oil cooler rebuild kit. So as the name implies, this is all the O-rings and seals that we will need to rebuild the oil cooler. Just one of those things that while you got it out here on the bench, it's worth rebuilding this thing with new seals. You don't want your coolant and oil contaminating in your brand new, very expensive motor. So for $7 or $10 or whatever it was, replace all the O-rings in that. We'll get to that. And then this is what I was waiting for in particular, because this is the, as far as I know, it's the actual next step that we need for this motor. Ford Performance timing kit. So timing stuff, you know, you could probably in a lot of cases reuse your timing chains and guides if they're in good shape, and a lot of people do with good success, but 106,000 hard miles on what I'm positive is the original timing set on that motor. You know, again, on a brand new motor, you'd be dumb not to. So this includes everything. You know, I guess it comes with seals too, which I have in my other gasket set, but I guess we got two now. I might have doubled up on some stuff, but that's all right. Yeah, new guides with, you know, all new wear bars, your crank position thing, all new cogs and gears and bolts. Obviously, Hardware, it looks like it might even come with timing cover hardware. That's crazy. I didn't know it came with that. I guess I don't have to reuse my stuff. All right. And then obviously brand new tensioners, iron tensioners, and then obviously brand new Ford Racing chains. So got a complete timing set here. This setup was not really cheap. It's not like a, you know, billet adjustable timing set either, but it was not cheap. But again, this is probably not something you want to cheap out on a brand new motor. So we got our brand new timing set there, which is the next thing we need to tackle on this. We're ready to get all of our gears and tensioners and everything on this so we can seal up the motor. The other stuff in here we'll get into in a little more depth in a later video, but these are brand new OEM headlights. LMR's got a really special set of headlights for these cars, and I'll tell you why in a later video. Some of you guys might already know, but they are very specific to the 01 to 04 Mustangs, and there's one key feature that differentiates them, and I'm pretty sure LMR is the only one that makes them like that. I got a third brake light in here because, as I mentioned in the first video, they always crack, and that one is cracked. This one's sequential too, which I think is kind of cool. And then you guys know I'm big on floor mats. Got some new Cobra floor mats in there to go with the new carpet that I got stuffed over there. But we'll get into that. If we ever get through the mechanicals on this car, we can move on to some of the cosmetics, which will be fun, but we'll put those away for now. But for now, I think we're gonna change gears for the day, I guess, and kind of focus on some cosmetic stuff. Because speaking of sealing up the motor, we gotta get, pretty soon here, we're gonna have to get the timing cover and the valve covers on. And here's the current state of the valve covers. So they look pretty terrible. I mean, they'd probably clean up okay, and that's fine, but I want to do something special for these. The obvious answer is to powder coat them, but we have blown a lot of our budget on this car already. So I think I'm going to paint these, and I think if done properly, it will hold up just fine, and I know plenty of guys that have painted their valve covers with success in the past. The factory, you know, painted them. This is silver paint right here, so I think we're going to be just fine. The obvious answer as far as color for me is Sonic Blue, and you know, that's for two reasons. Obviously the color of the car is Sonic Blue. The second one is I've got like a pint of Sonic Blue in my paint bucket somewhere from painting various stuff, including the intake manifold on my black C6 Z06 and other stuff that I've done Sonic Blue in the past. I love Sonic Blue. So I've got the paint. It's not going to cost me anything but a little bit of time, so good for the budget, and I think it's going to look really good. So I've got a ton of prep to do on these, and then same thing with the valve cover, or the timing cover. This thing is just coated in years of leaks, along with everything else. Basically, I want to take advantage of the weather today, clean some of this stuff up, and get it painted. Unfortunately, it's December now, so it's like 45 degrees outside, and really not ideal for painting. So obviously, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to paint because, you know, this is probably the nicest weather we'll have for the rest of the year. This is probably my last chance to paint this year. So even though it's way too cold to be painting, I'm going to paint anyways. And I don't know, maybe we'll toss these by the fireplace later and they can cure that way. But I think it's warm enough. There's no wind today. It's a good day for painting outside in my driveway, aka the paint booth. So enough talk. Let's get to work. Degreasing, super deep cleaning these parts, maybe scuffing them, sanding them a little bit, getting them ready for paint, and then let's get them sprayed in Sonic Blue. Maybe do some of the other stuff over on the bench here too that's equally as filthy. Let's go. Oh yeah, 45, almost raining out, and the wind's picking up. Perfect painting conditions in the paint booth today. after a lot of power washing, degreasing, oven cleaner, got just about every part off the motor that needed to be degreased. Still need a little bit more on the valve, or I'm sorry, the timing cover, but look at this. You can actually read the timing marks again. This thing was basically a 1/4 inch of grease all around. Still got a little bit right there, but everything else, same story. Most of this stuff is gonna get painted. I don't know if I'll have time today, but at least it's degreased and pretty much ready for paint. More importantly, I've been hard at work on the valve covers here. I'm in the backyard because the sun just came out. Like I said, it's just barely maybe 45, 50 degrees today, so not ideal, but we are gonna paint these valve covers Sonic Blue. Got them degreased, sanded, scuffed, prepped, primed, lightly sanded again. Anywhere where there was existing peeling paint, I wire wheeled that and made sure we used the etching primer. These aren't gonna be 100% perfect. You can see all the casting marks that were already existing in the finish, so there is going to be some imperfections, but I'm going to try my best to bury that in the clear. But either way, I mean, even in a half primered state, these things look way better than they did covered in oil and grease. And just look at this. Just open this up. It's been unused for a couple years now, but there's that beautiful Sonic Blue metallic. Shoo! So these are going to need one final wipe down, tack cloth, and then we can start doing probably a couple coats of base and a couple coats of clear. Hopefully they dry. I mean, I don't think I've ever painted when it's been this cold, but we'll see. Hopefully maybe even move them tonight down by the wood stove, see if we can bake them that way. But yeah, let's do the final prep, get the spraying. Just about out of sun. Not even 4 o'clock yet. We barely got that done yesterday as the sun went down and the temperature dropped quickly. It was pretty much to the point where I got the last coat of clear on and there was condensation starting to form on the valve cover, so I had to run down to the basement, start a fire and get those things curing as fast as possible, but they're all dried up today. Let's take a look at them. So here are our Sonic Blue valve covers. Looks really, really good. Look at that pearl. Shoo! Got all my gaskets off that I used to mask the bolt holes last night while the paint was still a little wet. Oh, except for that one, I guess. Same thing with my masking tape on the PCV stuff. But yeah, these things came out pretty good. They are not perfect, and I told you guys that before we started, because if you look over here, for example, get you focused, that's not a defect in the paint. That's the casting from the, that was in the valve cover before we started painting. This is kind of a translucent paint. So if you look really close, you can see all the imperfections in the casting. And, there's not really a whole lot I could do about that, given the conditions I had. Ooh, looks like I got a little baby run right there, but here's where I'm at with these things. When this is in the car, especially on this side, the intake elbow basically comes down here, and this is all covered by that. So really, the only part on these that you're really gonna see is this front part that covers the timing gear. So I tried to do my best to make this as perfect as possible, and it pretty much is, except for that little baby run, but these can be wet sanded and buffed if I really wanted to. Now, if it was 70 degrees out, I could have spent many more hours priming these things, with a building primer, sanding them down, priming, sanding, etc. to get a perfectly smooth surface, and that would have been nice, but as is, I barely finished yesterday. The forecast is calling for nothing but 30-ish degrees for the next week. And, this is just what I could do with the time and the conditions that I had. And again, I think once they're in the car, they're going to look absolutely perfect. I'm super happy with them. I mean, we've got these super sparkly Sonic Blue valve covers. Compared to how this looked 24 hours ago, greasy, dirty, oily, just disgusting valve covers, I'm pretty psyched with these things. Plus, I got a special treat coming for the coil covers there. We're not going to throw those stock ones back on, so I spent a little money on those. With the money we saved doing the valve covers in Sonic Blue, for $0, I had all of the paint, and I actually still have tons of Sonic Blue, so we'll have more Sonic Blue if we want to do other stuff. But for a few hours of work and no money, that is a huge improvement. I couldn't put those nasty valve covers back on, so those are done. And we will also pay homage to, what we got, Stephen Foe and Ronald Anderson. Even though they didn't build this motor, we got to put this thing back on. We'll clean it up and get it glued back on there, and this thing will look sweet. As far as the rest of the motor is concerned, I got all these parts that I washed yesterday out drying on the bench here. These are all the parts that I'm going to paint. Can't put them on. I've got them mostly clean, but still, we can't put parts like this back on the motor without a fresh coat of paint. So I have dug way deep in the spray paint cabinet to try and use up some various, silvers and matte blacks, and this is like a metallic gray, which is pretty sweet. I think this is two different Ford colors right here. Gonna try and use some of this stuff up. Again, no cost to me, really. To really clean up a lot of these parts. Still got to pull some of these pulleys off and stuff, and probably do some masking, but all of this stuff is ready to be painted so it can be tossed on that motor. But yeah, guys, I just went inside and reviewed all of the footage I have for this video, and it's already a lot. We got a lot done here. First of all, we got a motor for this car, which is very important. Second of all, we got a great deal on it, which is also very important considering the budget that I'm trying to keep on this car. And we got a lot done in preparing it to go in the car. Got the wrong heads off, got the right heads on, Cobra Engineering, timing dowels, oil pump, got the oil pan all cleaned out, a couple of new gaskets, got the valve covers prepped and painted, got everything torqued. Tons of progress there. Got a lot of this stuff cleaned up. There's still a lot of work to do on this car, like a lot, but we're making some progress back here. So I'm super happy with what we got done so far. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and the continued progress on this cheap 2003 Mustang Cobra. I'm gonna start filming the next one right now, get to work painting some of the stuff so we can get the motor back together, get it back in the car as soon as possible. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. I'll catch you in the next one.